Hi, Lisa Marie Kosis, founder of Global One Health. In this video, I want to introduce the form-specific stretches of animal flow. While there are 4 such stretches in the animal flow practice, they also comprise one of the 6 components of animal flow. And while the stretches are great for improving flexibility in the muscle tissue, they also are great for joint mobility prep at the beginning of your animal flow practice for the day, or even as a general warm-up before other types of workouts. And while the stretches can be done in no specific order, you can also put them together as part of the actual animal flow and include them in that flow. So we're going to begin with the APE stretch. An APE stretch is going to start in deep APE position. So I will show this exercise from the front and side view so that you can get all the different angles. A couple general footnotes. When getting into deep APE, if you do not have the joint mobility in your hip, knee, and or ankle structures to get into the classic position down here in the ground, I will show you a modified version at the end of the video. So, but starting with the classic one first. Now, based upon your joint mobility in your hips, knees, and ankles will determine about how far apart you set your feet up in the beginning position. You do want to start with your feet flat on the ground, so the heels have to be pressing down and they need to make contact with the floor. So I'm going to set myself up into my deep APE position. I'm going to think of a very rounded position, curving almost like a ball in the back of my mind. So in the deep APE, the first position is I'm stretching the posterior side of my body, my spinal joints, and my spinal erectors. So while I'm in that dorsiflex position in the ankles, as I said, feet flat, I'm going to internally rotate my arms, which is very different from what we've talked about in the crab and then the beast activation when we're on our hands and we want to be corkscrewed or externally rotated at the shoulder joints. The deep APE initial position is an internal rotation, and I want to think about that for my shoulder joint. So I'm not just thinking about turning my hands, my palms to face out for my forearms and my elbows. I want to think about that from the shoulder joints. So I'm going to internally rotate both arms all the way at the shoulder joint. I'm going to press the tops of my hands together if I have that mobility to do so, but I also want to think about pressing those hands into each other, which will create a little bit more energy between the sternum, the chest, and the shoulders and the arms, which will also help for to get into a deeper position and help that. As I mentioned, my arms are extended straight, aiming down to the ground. Thumbs also are pointing downward, and my spine is in a very curved position. So I'm trying to pull my head and chin into my chest, and my tailbone is pulling forward and I'm tucked under. So I'm trying to pull my abdominal wall in the front and my spine backwards, and the head, tailbone, and arms are reaching in that forward position. So my knees are just outside of my body, almost hugging in slightly. I'm looking down, reaching down, thumbs down. And from here, I'll go in slow motion. I want to go into the opposite position of my body. I'm going to shift my weight forward, pelvis, spine, the whole body is going to shift forward. So now I'm going to externally rotate my legs just a little bit, but I'm going to lengthen the whole front of my spine. I'm going to externally rotate my arms at my shoulder joints, rotating my arms so that my palms are now facing the ceiling, and notice my hands are just slightly below shoulder level. I also want to arch my back. I'm really lengthening the front of my spinal joints, open like a slinky to in front of me, and I'm looking upwards, and my heels are off of the ground, if you can see that. From here, I would transition back into deep APE, folding back in, rounding the spine, pulling the head and tailbone forward, the spine back, internally rotating, and pressing my hands together. So from the side view so that you can see that as well, I will go ahead and start in that deep APE position. Notice I'm really trying to pull that tailbone and that head forward, really rounding. It's such a nice stretch on the spinal erectors and the back side of my trunk. Arms turning in. I transition my weight forward. My legs will turn out a bit. My heels will come up. Core stays engaged. I'm lifting up my focus, opening up the front of the spine vertically. I get into a nice spinal extension. I look up and I'm rotating out, and then I would come back into the deep APE. So keeping that in mind, as I mentioned in the beginning, if you don't have the joint mobility to get all the way down and do this on the ground, you can do a modified regression standing. I even have clients teaching at a ballet bar. If you have a type of structure or a dresser, if you don't have the stability to do the movement, you can use a prop. But what you would want to do is start Standing, now you have to have the knees bent the whole time. This cannot be done with a straight leg. So you'll have your knees bent, you're curving forward, glutes engaged, especially in the standing variation. It's a little bit easier to learn how to do that and engage through those muscle structures, right? So I'm rounded in my spine. I'm still going to give the same position. I'm just at a higher level, which is less load and less challenging, but a great way to learn how to move the spine and the hips and the shoulders in the position. So I'm rounded, hip folded into chest, arms internally rotating, fingers reaching long down, thumbs down. I reach open, out, so I can really own the positions that I want to be in. Right now I can really get, right, it's much easier to facilitate that spinal extension. I'm arched, I'm engaging the back muscles, stretching and lengthening the abs, externally rotating the arms, and as I mentioned, hands below shoulder level. And then I could come back in to that deep ape position so you can see from the different angles. Rounded, I open up, extending everything open, reaching my palms to the ceiling and opening up and coming back into deep ape. So definitely a fantastic opening up, that stretch. If you sit at a desk for an extended period of time throughout your day, and if you're slouching, the spine gets rounded, shoulders come forward, that opening up of the anterior trunk muscles, the interior joint structures of the spine, it feels great. And it's also very important that you open up those anterior structures to counterbalance the negative effects of sitting, especially in a slouched position. So that is the ape reach.